Winston Churchill once said that of all the small nations on this earth, perhaps only the ancient Greeks have surpassed the Scots in their contribution to mankind. I'm here in the imposing heart of Scotland's second city, Glasgow. Glasgow lies on the west coast of this ancient land steeped in history and myth. And it is from here that I will embark upon a railway journey that is repeatedly voted one of the most spectacular in all the world. My journey begins here in Glasgow, but it's also a journey back in time to fractious Scottish clans fighting for ascendancy over one another, to wars against the English, and to Jacobite rebels seeking to restore a Catholic monarch to the thrones of Scotland and England. Glasgow lies on the River Clyde, which has been pivotal in the development of this great city, a city which is also the hub of Scotland's historic railway network. I will be travelling on one of the most evocative and breathtaking of these lines. Firstly to Fort William, situated at the south end of the Great Glen, in the heart of the Highlands. And then northwest on an old steam train to the small port town of Malaig, which is the hopping-off point for the Isle of Skye and on to the Hebrides. I begin in the 19th century, a moment of rapid industrialisation which brought huge and sweeping changes to a city that previously had played only a tangential role in the British imperial enterprise. Glasgow acquired its reputation as the second most important city in the British Empire in the middle of the 19th century. And the spectacular interior of the Glasgow city chambers tells us volumes about the heady, self-congratulatory confidence of those times, when English entrepreneurs and industrialists headed north of the border to take advantage of cheap Scottish labour. They built iron foundries, shipyards, locomotives, and the railways to put them on. Glasgow had never had it so good. It was a time when the slogan "Made in Glasgow" was recognised around the world as a byword for technical expertise, precision engineering, and quality finishes. And you could say pretty much the same for this place. It was here on the western side of the city that rich industrialists, bankers, entrepreneurs built their homes. The westerly breezes sweeping in off the ocean, creating a salubrious microclimate that was very far removed from the eastern outskirts, and the shipbuilding yards down on the banks of the River Clyde, whose industry generated the enormous wealth to support this lavish lifestyle. Glasgow University is a very ancient seat of learning, the second oldest university in Scotland and the fourth oldest in the English-speaking world. And the money that paid for these magnificent buildings came from Glasgow's Industrial Revolution. Launched in 1896, the Glen Lee is the last of the Clyde-built square riggers still afloat in British waters. Today she's moored outside the Riverside Museum, a fantastic new institution in Glasgow dedicated to the transport revolution of the 19th and 20th centuries. A revolution which in Glasgow was driven not only by shipbuilding but also by the railways. John Messner, curator here at the museum, tells me more about the development of this extraordinary city. John, Glasgow, why did it all happen here?
Well, Glasgow is truly one of Europe, if not the world's industrial cities. It has a great river, so it has access to the sea. There's locations for coal, there's locations for iron, which led into the shipbuilding trade, which really took off in the middle of the 19th century. There is still some shipbuilding here done on the Clyde, but it's nowhere near the hustle and bustle and what must have been an amazing sight to see, massive, great passenger liners leaving from just near the Riverside Museum. And that also led to the transport evolution of the 19th century on land, which is, of course, the railways. Glasgow is the center of Scotland's railways, and it has been since the 1830s. Glasgow was home to two of Scotland's largest railway companies, which built their own locomotives and carriages, but also became home to Europe's largest locomotive builder, which is the North British Locomotive Company, which formed in 1903 and sent around 20,000 locomotives to almost all parts of the globe.
Glasgow Queen Street Station is the starting point of the West Highland Line, one of the two railway lines that access the surprisingly closed Highlands and remote west coast of Scotland. It is here that my journey starts into the heart of the Highlands and the heart of Scottish history. It's almost 4 hours to Fort William, and the first leg of my journey is on one of these electrified ScotRail trains, which also serves the commuter belt to the north of the city. The West Highland Line from Glasgow actually has two final destinations. First, the line travels north into the Highlands and the town of Crianlarich, where it divides. One half of the train heading west to the coast at Oban, whilst the other, which I'm taking, carries on north to the shores of Loch Linnhe and the town of Fort William. Well, we've left the suburbs of Glasgow far behind, and the scenery's changing. It's becoming more rugged, which announces our arrival in the Scottish Highlands. It's a landscape of lakes and mountains, or lochs and munros in the Gaelic. A munro is an eminence or hill of over 3,000 feet. Well, I'm taking a bit of a break from my journey to stop off here at Upper Tyndrum. Tyndrum is the smallest settlement in the British Isles that can boast not one, but two railway stations. Upper Tyndrum, which is en route to Fort William and Malaig, and Tyndrum Lower, which is on the route to Oban. Just a few miles up the road from Tyndrum Station, one comes to this fantastic place, Kilchurn Castle, which has played a dramatic role in the history of the region. It is estimated that there may have been more than 2,000 castles in Scotland. Many of them have now vanished with only historical records to tell us of their existence. This survivor is one of the most spectacularly beautiful. Kilchurn Castle was built around 1450 by Sir Colin Campbell, paramount chief of the Campbell clan. The Scottish clans constituted a kind of tribal system of independent fiefdoms, each clan being associated with a particular territory that was sacred to their name. It wasn't the case that all clan members were directly related to one another or even shared the same surname. Clan membership was first and foremost based on territory. Nevertheless, it is indeed true that the majority did claim their descent, whether real or fictive, from the eponymous clan founder. Cameron, Campbell, MacDonald, MacDougall, and so on. Probably the most recognisable delineation of the various clans are their unique tartans. Tartan was so important to the identity of a clan that the English government's Dress Act of 1746 attempted to bring the warrior clans under control by banning the wearing of tartan. Needless to say, that didn't work out too well for the English. As for the interrelationship between the clans, that was always fractious at the best of times. Indeed, much of the history of the Scottish Highlands has to do with the competition of the clans for resources and territory. And a hell of a story it is too, a tale of glorious battles, bloody massacres, dubious alliances, and infamous treachery. Well, I'm back on the train after our stop at Tyndrum, and from here to Fort William is about another hour and 50 minutes. And I have to say that the landscape is getting more dramatic and wilder by the minute. Just about 4 hours out of Queen Street, Glasgow, and we're pulling into Fort William, and this is where I hop off. The second largest settlement in the Highlands, Fort William has a dramatic history, growing as it did around a fort built by Oliver Cromwell during the English Civil War. You know you've arrived in the Highlands when even the street signs are in English and Gaelic. Today, it is a thriving little town of around 10,000 people, surviving mainly on the summer tourist trade and winter ski season. I'm here on the shores of Loch Lynny, and behind me is Ben Nevis, the highest peak in the British Isles. And over here is Fort William, named after William of Orange. He was the Dutch son-in-law of James II. And in 1688, he was invited to invade England by a disaffected English aristocracy who were concerned that James was becoming too sympathetic towards the Catholic cause. James himself was a practicing Catholic, but more to the point, so too was his second wife, Mary of Modena. And between them, they had produced a Catholic heir to the throne of England. That heir was Prince Charles, later known as Bonnie Prince Charlie. But the aristocracy didn't want him or his Catholic father to rule, so they installed the Protestant William on the throne. Cue a rebellion, as they say. Charlie, that was magnificent. The most ancient fortified site in the area is Old Inverlochy Castle, stronghold of the Cameron clan and the site of an infamous murder. When Robert the Bruce took against its owner, John Cumming, was the most powerful man in Scotland, reputedly by stabbing him through the ear. It is here that I met Charlie McFarlane, local historian and world-renowned piper. The term Jacobite, tell me where that comes from.
That comes from the Latin Jacobus, spelt Jacobus, so that the people who supported the Jameses were Jamesites, if you like. Jacobite, hence.
Right. So the Jacobite rebellion, that had the full support of the clans behind it?
Well, first of all, it wasn't a rebellion, it was a rising. Rebellion was something unlawful. And they saw Prince Charlie's father as the rightful heir to the throne, and that was similar to a chief not being put into his rightful place. And so that was a good enough cause.
Apart from being a historian and piper, Charlie is also trustee of the West Highland Museum, home to a fantastic collection of Jacobite artefacts.
This is a Jacobite room. Everything here is connected with the Jacobite rising. Even these pipes here, they were played at Culloden, which brought the rising to an end. And the pride and joy of the Jacobite collection here, the secret portrait of Prince Charlie. Ingenious.
This rather innocuous-looking splodge of paint on a drinks tray is in fact one of the earliest examples of an anamorphic painting. When any shiny round vessel, such as a goblet, is placed in front of the painting, a perfect portrait of the prince is reflected.
At the time, it was illegal to have a portrait of the prince, but they could toast the prince without fear of retribution.
So it was like a sort of secret sign for the Jacobites, or...
Yeah.
Quite fantastic. The Jacobite Railway is named after the Jacobite uprisings of the 17th and 18th century, which, as we have heard, are closely associated with Fort William and the region round about. This is something I'm really looking forward to. This is the last leg of this great railway journey. I'm travelling from the shores of Loch Lynny, northwest for 41 breathtaking miles to the coast and the port of Malaig. For the first part of our journey, we're travelling along the shores of Loch Eir. The West Highland line has all the quintessential features of the classic railway journey. A steam locomotive, and railway carriages with compartments and corridors. Gives you a very good impression of what it was like to travel by railway in the late 19th century, when train journeys increased exponentially and brought tourism to the Highlands. This line was opened in 1901, costing the princely sum of £540,000 to construct. 3,500 navvies were used to dig the 11 tunnels, the longest of which is Barradale at 349 yards. We're just coming up to one of the most spectacular pieces of line, the Glenfinnan Viaduct, a tremendous piece of Victorian railway architecture built in the year of Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, 1897. And it's commemorated here on a Scottish £10 note. But many of you will be more familiar with it from the Harry Potter films. This is also the line to Hogwarts. So, Florence, I understand that you're the guard of this magnificent train.
I am indeed, yeah.
And how long have you been doing that?
I've been on the railway for 32 years.
32 years?
Yeah,
Gosh,
yeah.
you don't look like you're old enough to have been on anywhere in 32 years. Were you always on this line, or did you do the
I go down as far
generally?
as Glasgow, from Malaig to Glasgow.
Yeah. How long does it take to get to Malaig?
It's a 2-hour journey, and then they have a stopover for an hour and 3/4, so it's plenty of time and a lovely day like today for some lunch, and I look down the pier and see the seals and sometimes the dolphins as well, and then the fish and chips and back in the train.
And then they return on the same train? So
Return on the same train, yes.
Right,
It's a good day out. It's
yes.
10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's a really good day out.
I saw a railway carriage,
Yeah.
which is named Florence. Anything to do with you?
Yes, it is. My boss, for my birthday 3 years ago, it was a gift.
Really?
Yeah,
My
yeah.
goodness. You must be very popular with your colleagues and employees.
Well, hopefully.
I noticed a very fancy dining car with candles and little lights on the table.
Yeah.
What do you have to do to get on that carriage?
That's the first class one. That's the one that's called Florence.
Yes.
That's our
Oh,
first
really?
class, yeah. That's the
right,
first class
no
coach.
common and garden carriage for you,
Absolutely
but the very best.
not.
Marvellous, yeah.
Yeah. It's booked months in advance, that coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you the only person privileged to have a carriage named after you?
Well, on this train, yes. They do, every first class carriage has got a name.
The typical passenger profile, what sort of person comes from wherever to travel on this train?
From all over the world. They come just especially to ride the Jacobite steam train. Yeah, you get all different walks of life. You get the steam buffs, the ones that are just not really interested in sitting down, they just want to hang out windows and not interested in the scenery, they just want to take photos of the engine, see how the engine's working. And then you get families, just the Harry Potter theme, that's been a big thing in the last few years. Today, for instance, we've got a couple renewing their wedding vows.
Is it used a lot for feature films and things like that?
Yeah, it's been used for the Harry Potter. We've used the coaches. Most of it were compartment coaches like this one. In the last 2 films, there were some open coaches as well. So yeah,
Right.
there's been a lot used in the Harry Potter films.
So, I mean, is it a case that they take over the whole
They take over
train?
the whole line.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
take
yeah,
the line over,
exactly,
yeah. And I worked on that as well, so that was
Oh, really?
different.
Do you
yeah.
feature in the films yourself?
No, not at all. No,
I wouldn't
no.
recognise you. In the
No,
cinema.
one of the witches.
Yeah, one of the witches, yeah. OK, I'm going to test you now. Some facts and figures. First of all, how long is the train? How many carriages?
We've got 7 carriages. The length of the train is quite a long train. It's 520 feet long.
With all those carriages, what's the complement in terms of passengers?
Passengers, we can take 360, 366 is our maximum.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
And,
lot of people going into Malaig in a day.
And the locomotive? what sort of age is that?
This one here is probably 1930, 1940,
Really?
something like that, yeah. The coaches are about my age as well, so...
Yeah. I am pretty sure there are a lot of people on this journey who could tell me without too much trouble that these are 1950s Mark I British railway carriages with opening door drop lights and window ventilators. The locomotive was designed by William A. Stanier in 1932 and is an ex-LMS Black 5, number 45231, called the Sherwood Forester. It was built by Armstrong Whitworth, Newcastle, in 1936. I knew that, of course. And now we're just approaching Malaig, and out there are the Western Highlands of Scotland. Malaig, gateway to the islands. Today's trip from Fort William to Malaig brings us to the end of the West Highland Line. Completed in 1901, it transformed Malaig from a little fishing village into what was once Europe's busiest herring port, though actually the pride of Malaig was always its smoked kippers. Today, Malaig is not the place it once was, but it's still a very charming stepping-off point to Scotland's Western Isles. I may have reached the end of the line, but I'm not quite at the end of my journey. I have one more port of call to make, literally. And that's the most remote pub on the British mainland, and it can only be reached by sea. It's a destination I'm determined to reach. This boat takes around half an hour, out past the Isle of Skye towards the Hebrides and the Knoydart Peninsula. The old forge at Lochcash is only really accessible by sea. Well, you could walk, but it would take you about 2 days. Out here, you really get a sense of the remote otherworldliness of this stunning country. You can see why people have fought and died for this land for centuries. There's something quintessentially Scottish about it, something intangible, almost spiritual. I think I might be getting a bit hippie here. Well, they said it was remote, and they weren't joking. First there's a half-hour boat ride, and there's still a bit of a hike to the pub. Well, now I really have reached the end of my journey, here at the old forge on the Knoydart Peninsula. And I have to say, it feels like I've been on a whistle-stop tour through Scotland's rich and varied past. Warring clans and Jacobite rebels, Robert the Bruce and Bonnie Prince Charlie. And of course the 19th century Industrial Revolution, which created the railways that made my journey possible. It's been a fantastic and enriching experience, as magical as any Harry Potter adventure, except for one thing. It was for real, and I didn't have to make it up. You're very good health.